I know that you're all muted right now and have got your cameras off. Please keep them that way, just so that it's easier for the internet to cope. As you'll be aware, there are just so many people using the technology right now that it gets challenged when we have too many people, and we've got many people joining us today on the webinar. Secondly, please make sure that you use the chat box and the Q&A box. Put your questions into those. It's great to see those questions coming through. And just because we've got so many people with us today, I'll answer those questions at the end of the session as we go through. But keep the questions coming in as you think of them as well. Thirdly, there is an action pack. So what do we know right now in this time? We know that there is a massive amount of uncertainty. We often know as leaders what it is that we need to know. It's the how do we go about doing it that we're struggling with. How do we motivate our people? We know it's important that we do so. How do we keep people productive? So today is about the how to. How do we make those things happen? And the action pack that we've prepared for you is coming out of the webinar today. So it's a series of templates. It's a series of resources that will really help you to be able to implement and help your people to work and do their best work from home just as they had in the office in the past. So there'll be some details at the end of the webinar on how we get access to that. Let's go. One more. I can see there's a little hand up. Let me just check that and see what's happening there. Thank you, Tracy. All right, the Leaders Challenge. There are challenges for us now that are different to what we had in the past. Just get out of that for now. As leaders, we've got different obstacles and more obstacles perhaps than we had in the past. And this is new territory for us as well. So there are some challenges involved. And I've listed some of the things that you may just be feeling now. It's like, well, you know what? It's great that I've got my team working from home, but how do I know what they're actually doing when I'm not seeing them all the time? Oops, let me just get back in there. I don't want to micromanage, but, you know, what if I don't know what they're really up to? Some of my team are feeling anxious. What do I need to do about that? I'm wanting to look after them, but I'm not sure that I'm equipped to have the right words either. There are all these distractions at home, both for me and for them. And if we look at what's happening now with schools for holiday time and perhaps beyond, then those distractions are not only the distractions of stuff around home, but also children, also partners, all of us trying to work in this space together. How do I juggle questions from my team, concerns from clients wanting to know what's happening, being concerned about their own businesses, and my children's needs and their needs, the things they think they really need as well? How do we collaborate well now that we're all in different places? When we could sit around the boardroom table, that was pretty easy. Now that we're all at home, even though we can look at video, it's not quite the same as being face to face. How do we do that differently now? I'm actually really missing seeing people. How do I gauge how well they're coping? Is my communication clear? Am I communicating too little? Am I communicating too much? Each of these are challenges for us as leaders now to know what is the best way that we can lead our people. I know I need to lead, but you know what? I'm actually pretty worried myself. Our people are looking to us, never more so than in these times of crisis. And yet, understandably, we're also anxious, some of us, and some of the time, all of us, some of the time, about how are we going to manage our way through this process as well. So the webinar that we've prepared for you today is 3 steps to help us to navigate this, to lead and to motivate your team while they're working from home. We need to follow each of these 3 steps. So I'm going to look at the 3 quickly now as an overview and then go through each of them with you as we go through the webinar. Firstly, creating certainty. In these uncertain times as a leader, one of the best things you can do for your people to help them to be productive and motivated at home is to create a sense of certainty for them. Secondly, creating new routines. We know that we're now working completely differently to the way we have before, so we need to build new routines, new rhythms, so that we can work in the best way possible in this time and going forward. And thirdly, you won't be surprised, communicate. We can say we can't communicate enough in times of crisis. Perhaps that's true. More importantly, we need to communicate frequently, but in the right way. And so looking at those 3 steps will help us to be really great leaders in this time of uncertainty. We'll cover off both the concepts and ideas, so the knowledge. What do we need to know in this space? But as I've just alluded to, very importantly, what do we do about it? What are the tools? What are the techniques that we can use? So today, each time we look at each of these steps, there'll be both the ideas of it and also a tool that you'll get in that action pack to take away and be able to implement this afternoon, certainly tomorrow. So let's have a look at the first one. Step 1, creating certainty for your people. You know, in these times where we are obviously completely uncertain, you know, we look out there and we go, what's going on? I don't know about you, but we find ourselves saying, was it only yesterday we were talking about that being the situation? Gosh, was it 2 weeks ago we were behaving like that or completing those tasks? Things are changing so rapidly. And for many people, this is overwhelming. They're feeling completely almost paralyzed by the fact of this uncertainty and these times of change. And when we're uncertain, many of us tend to procrastinate. We don't know what to do, where to start, so we often don't start at all. What can you do to create that certainty for people so that they can become productive? Because of course, when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we are procrastinating, we're being nowhere near as productive as we could be. So the first thing that you want to do in terms of creating that certainty for your people is actually to shorten in those horizons. Instead of us talking about our 90-day goals, start talking about what we're doing this week, even what are we doing today. That's where your people are at, and create that sense of, we know what we need to focus on today, let's do that, and then get to tomorrow. Focus on what you can do. There is so much, truthfully, that is out of our control right now, but we can become swamped by that. No matter the circumstances, there are things that we can do. And as a leader, it becomes really important for you to focus on those things with your people. Stay positive, but I've also put, but not fake or flippant. Sometimes when we want our people to feel more comfortable, we'll say things like, oh, don't worry about it, it'll all be okay. But for people who are really concerned, this doesn't make them not worry at all. In fact, that gives them a sense of, I need to be even more concerned. You just don't get where I'm coming from. So we need to stay positive in the sense of, we know what's happening now. Let's stay focused on the things that we've talked about that we will focus on today. And when we do that, we'll find that we move ourselves and our teams in a much more certain way. So there's the principles. What are the tools that we're looking at here? There's a key tool for us to use. Pull in that horizon, pull that boat in close, and it's a priority template. We've created a priority template for you, and you'll get that in your action pack at the end of today. What are the things that are critical on that template? Firstly, ensure that it's got just 2 to 3 priorities for this week. If we start having more than that, we start putting people into that space of overwhelm again. What are the 2 to 3 for this week? And very importantly, what are the 2 to 3 tasks or steps that we're going to focus on for today? Ensure that you've got those ready to go every single day for your people, so they know what to focus on. And of course, those tasks or steps may well be feeding into the priorities that you've got for the week. We use, and you'll see this in the template, traffic light indicators: green, amber, red. Green, obviously, for, yep, done that. We know as people, we do it often as children, and then we forget to do it as an adult. But that notion of being able to tick things off our list, cross things off our list, gives us a real sense of achievement. So use traffic light indicators with your people that as they tick off the tasks that they're doing. Included in the template are some good news stories. Right now, there's lots of bad news stories. What are the good news stories? And they're really specific things that are happening for our people. It might be a call from a client where they're really grateful for the advice that you've given to them. It may be a change that we've made to one of our processes and now it's more streamlined than it was before. Those good news stories become a really important perspective for our people to ensure that they feel that they're achieving and that they're contributing some value, albeit in a much more isolated way than they're used to. And give them space as well also on that template to ensure that they can put in the obstacles. What are the things that they're finding are difficult? And those difficulties may be related specifically to the tasks that they're doing. They may also be obstacles around working from home. You know, I'm struggling to find myself a workspace. I'm struggling now that the children are home and on holiday. Let us be in that space where we think holistically for about how we can help our people to overcome those obstacles. And lastly, with these templates, don't let them just get to be in a pile. They need to come back into you as the leader every single day so that you know what is it that our people have achieved and what are the things that they're now focusing on. It's very important that it comes in today. If it comes in tomorrow, you can imagine you're starting the day talking about yesterday. And if there are red lights or amber lights, that's not a great way for people to start the day when they're already working from home and feeling quite isolated very often. So ensure that you have a time for each of your people in your team where they send you through their template, their completed template for today, and you discuss it together. It's a 5-minute stand-up meeting. You know, where are the green lights? Fantastic, positive feedback there. Where are the amber lights? What are we going to do about those? Where are those red lights? What are we going to do about those? So that we're in a space where we're able to move forward with our teams. So that's number one, creating certainty. Number two, we need to create new routines. We need to create a new rhythm, both for ourselves and for our people. When we sit in this space, you think what used to happen, we'd get up in the morning, we get lunches ready for everyone, we're dropping off the children at school, we're heading into work ourselves, into our usual car park, our usual cafe for our cup of coffee, whatever those starter routines were that you had, and then there's meetings scheduled during the day. All of that's gone. So we're now in this space where we need to create a new routine, where we need to create a new rhythm so that we can be as productive and as motivated as possible. Because we know in the cycle that once you start doing things, it's easier to stay motivated. And once you're motivated, it's easier to be doing things. And you can see it just continues on that cycle going around. What are the things that we can do that really help that? Firstly, structure your day. Make sure that you start well at the same time every day. It can be a bit tempting on these days as it's got darker with daylight saving stopping. You know, it's that notion of it's a bit colder in the mornings now. It's not darker, actually, it's lighter, isn't it? But it's colder. You know, do I stay snuggled into bed because I don't have to drive through the traffic anymore? Start your day well and at the same time every day and on a really specific task. So it's important that we know at least the day before, what time am I starting tomorrow and what task am I starting on? You need to do that yourself, and you need to encourage your team to do that so that we build ourselves this new rhythm, this new routine. There's 2 techniques that I'm going to share with you coming up in a moment. Both of these techniques are fantastic for helping us to be in routines and to set new rhythms for us to work by. Some of you may have been using them before. They become even more critical now for ourselves and for our teams that we're working from home. The first of those is Pomodoros, and the second of those is a next level Duelist. So let's look at both of those tools. And again, notes on both of these tools are sitting in your action pack that you'll be able to get at the end of the webinar today. Pomodoro, some of you may have heard about them before. Excuse my terrible Italian, and I should be better because our daughter spent some time in Italy, but Pomodoros is an Italian word and it does mean tomato. It came from the tomatoes being timers, and the idea of it is that you will have a dedicated between 30 and 60 minutes. You decide the time depending on the role that you have, 30 to 60 minutes of completely focused time. This is sacred time that you're going to use to spend doing a critical task or a step of your project. During that time, it's full on focus. Nothing else gets in the way. So the alert is turned off on your email if that tends to distract you. Your phone is on silent. During this time, you're focusing on this task and this task alone. Focus and finish that specific task or that specific step. It can be really helpful to think about it like a specialist appointment. You know, when we're looking to get an appointment with a specialist, we don't change it, do we? Because we know if we did, we might not see them for another 3 months. So it's really important that you treat this appointment with yourself in the same way. Use it to be focused on that specific task. When we're at work, whether we're at home or whether we're in the office, it becomes really important to communicate the fact that you're on a Pomodoro with the other people in your team. We often complain that people interrupt us. If they don't know they're interrupting, they will call it interacting. I'm giving you a call because I've got a question, Di. So if I've got a Pomodoro, for example, between 9:30 and 10:30 in the morning, then I need to make sure that my team know I'm on a Pomodoro between 9:30 and 10:30. Please call me before 9:30 or after 10:30. Talk about what to do, but let people know that during that time, that's when you're on your Pomodoro, on your specialist appointment. In the same way, you want your team to be doing exactly the same thing, setting up those Pomodoros and making sure that you know when they're on a Pomodoro so that you don't interrupt them during that time when they are on their focus as well. I'm going to suggest that now that we're working from home, it would be fantastic if we do Pomodoros as well, and included in who do we communicate them to will become our partners and our children as well, making sure that they know that during that time you're on a focused task. Call it a Pomodoro, set it up as a bit of fun with your family. And it would be fantastic if your children, if they're currently finishing off things at school, that they work to Pomodoros. We all have a Pomodoro, then guess what? We all stop and we meet and we have a drink and a bit of a change and then move on to the next thing. Great technique to have. The second technique in this space of building a routine and a new rhythm is to look at a next level do list. The first thing you'll notice in the wording is that it's a do list, not a to-do list. And it's not a typo. There's a reason for that. It's a do list because it's in the present tense. This is what we're doing now. It's not what we're going to do, which sadly can go on that gonna, and into the future. 4 key items that we need on that next level do list. The first one is to write it down. I know that sounds obvious, but think how often we say as adults, oh, like I've got it all in my head. In your head is not written down. Written down is in your diary, using Outlook. Doesn't matter whether it's physically writing or typing, but it's a list, a written list that you can see. Write that list, and secondly, prioritize it. Prioritize it from what are the most important things, not from what are the things I like doing, or what are the things that are quick to do. It's about importance rather than speed or ease. Thirdly, estimate how long each of those tasks is going to take. Often when I say this to people, they go, oh, but I don't know how long it takes, Di. That's exactly the reason that we need to start doing this next level do list. Estimate how long that task takes and time yourself. If it's taking too long, then we know we either need to allocate more time or we need to find smarter ways of doing it so that it doesn't take as long. But estimating the time so that we know how to do the fourth step, which is to schedule those tasks. So just as the images on the screen here now, that notion of you're building yourself a timetable. But you'll notice on the timetable that's on the screen here too, that it's got white patches. In other words, your do list and scheduling is for your proactive tasks. All of us though, particularly as leaders, but all of your team as well, will have both proactive tasks and reactive tasks. You can only schedule your proactive tasks. So you need to make sure that there's those gaps, the gaps of white, the free periods, if you like, in between, because that's where that reactive work can happen. Of course, we can't, in reality, dictate when that reactive work is going to happen. But if you've got your time slotted in, then it means if a reactive part comes in at this point, I've got some room to float my schedule so that I can still get those tasks done that are the key tasks back on my priority template that I'm wanting to achieve today. So those 2 tools, Pomodoros and Next Level Do List, fantastic ways for you and for your team to build those new routines, to set up that new rhythm. Step number 3, communicate. I wanted to have 3 of these because I don't think that you can do enough in this space. And yet it's doing enough. It's making sure that we have the right kind of communication that we're doing as well. Clearly in the past, we've done a lot of our communicating almost ad hoc. We're at the water cooler and we have a little conversation with someone. We're speaking to someone as we move from the car park. We're walking past and we notice that our team members looking a bit stressed, so we stop and just check in with them. We don't have the luxury of that anymore. So it becomes even more important that we are proactive as leaders in our communication. Be the one to start the conversation rather than saying, call me if you need me. So many of your quiet achievers, so many of your people who are less confident or who don't want to bother you, they're not going to call you. You need to be proactive. You need to be the one initiating that conversation and calling them. So one of the ways of doing that really well is to start your day by calling, checking in on your people early on in the day. Set and agree really clear expectations about what we're going to be doing. That's more important now because we don't have those little ad hoc check-ins like we had when we were all sitting in the same workplace, in the same office or in the same work environment. So being very clear about them. And that means asking open questions too, making sure that it's not just you talking about the expectations, but that your team member is reflecting back what it is that they're going to be doing. And it's not just about telling, it's about agreeing what those expectations are as well. Focus on the outcomes. You know, it's what's the end result that we want, rather than needing to dictate the pathway. And I think particularly in the next few weeks and the next few months, that's going to become even more important. People need some flexibility about how they're going to achieve those outcomes. There's multiple people in their households. There's multiple, if you like, pressures coming in on them. We need to be focused on the outcomes. How they achieve those outcomes needs to be up to them. And they will appreciate, at this time where we have so little freedom right now, it's great to have that freedom of, I'm determining how. We've just agreed the what I'm going to achieve. When you're speaking to your people, of course, it's important to talk about what they'll be doing. Please make sure as well that you talk about them as a person. We're all people first, and then we have roles that we fulfill in our work second. Show them that you care. Check out, remember that for many people, they've got at least one person in their household who's really either out of a job or terrified that they're going to become out of a job. We've got children at home and the challenges that brings, especially when we all know that the holidays this year are not going to just be for 2 weeks. So it's that part about seeing people, as leaders. It's so important that you show right now how much you care about them as people as well. And one of the good ways to gauge, because, you know, we've got, I don't know if I'm communicating too much or too little. If we just say, how is it going? Most of our people will say, oh, fine. Yeah, no, fine. So get a little bit smarter. Talk about when we're communicating in the morning, Di, you know, how's that going for you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it's not that helpful, 10 being it's fabulous, how would you rate our morning conversations? If the person says 8, 9 or 10, it's going great. Good, more of it. If they go, 6 or 7, that means you could be doing something better in your communication as a leader. So ask them, 6 or 7, what could I be doing better, John, in that space? That way we know that we need to tailor our communication for each of the people in our team. When you've got a score for each person, you know how to communicate best for each person in your team. And that might be in a slightly different way to what it was when we were all in that same workspace, in that common work area. So the tool for this is the communication log. I know this sounds like it's very organized, but when we don't see our people face to face, it becomes more important than ever to know what you've spoken to them about and the fact that you have spoken to them every day. I don't know if you're feeling this way, but I find myself sometimes going, what day is it? And was it only yesterday that I did that? So it becomes more difficult to be sure that, yes, I have spoken to each person and this is what I spoke with them about. And this was the next step. This is what I promised to do as a follow-up for them. This is what I asked them to do. And I need to check up on that now. So that communication log, and it's included in the action pack today as well, becomes really critical in this space for us, just to keep a good check on what we're doing, because we want to speak with every single person in our team every single day. If you can, try to have that conversation at a specific time. That helps with the routine, that helps with the certainty that we talked about in steps 1 and 2. That may be at the beginning of the day, but I know there's some clients that I have where they're finding they speak at 10:30 or at 12 because their people already have quite specific tasks that they like to get started on in the morning, and then they come together and talk about those things at the 10:30 or at the 12 o'clock mark. Make it work for you. The more consistent it can be, the better it will be in terms of its effectiveness. Speak by phone or by video. Emails is not the conversation that we're talking about here. By all means, follow up with an email when you've agreed the tasks, but this is our human connection. So we want that to be as human as it can possibly be, on the phone, on video if you have that chance. So whether you're using Zoom or whether you're using Teams, whatever the mechanism that you're using in your organization, make sure that you utilize that so that you're seeing your people as well as speaking with them, and keep that log. One of the main reasons for keeping that log is we need to look after our quiet achievers. Those people in the office, you walked past them every day. They just get on with things. They're some of our most valuable people. Right now, they might hear nothing from us because they probably won't ask us. They'll quietly get on with their work, do a fabulous job. They need to hear from you. So the log lets us go, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't spoken with Ted today. I need to make sure that I do that. So that log, as I say, is included in the action pack as well. Simple, really effective tool to ensure that we stay well connected with our people. So let's go back and look at those three steps again. Firstly, create certainty for your people. And the tool that goes with that to help you to do it is that priorities template, making sure that we stay focused on this week and today, not getting beyond that. Secondly, creating the new routines, creating new rhythms with your people. And the two really good tools to help us to do that, Pomodoros and our next level Duelist. And again, in your action plan, in your action pack are the some more notes about how to do that well. Third step, communicate every single day with every person, and your communication log will be a way, and amongst all of the things that you're now doing as a leader, will be a great way of just ensuring that you stay focused on communicating really well and really consistently with each of your people. So what happens now? Firstly, the action pack. So that notion of here are the tools that you can use straight away. You're able to have that straight away from us. And that's got both the templates and the tools in it. And it's also got a little cheat sheet in it. The cheat sheet is these 3 steps with visuals, with graphics sitting there. Please print that one out and put it in a place where you are going to see it regularly. It's almost like in your face as a really good reminder of the 3 things that you're going to do to keep your people really engaged and motivated and therefore productive during these uncertain times. I'm happy to send those out to you this afternoon. So in order to do that, you'll see my number there on the screen, 0417 272 583. Send me a text with your name and your email, and I'll make sure that you get that action pack coming through to you this afternoon so that you can utilise it straight away. We also have been recording the webinar today, and you'll get a recording of that same thing. You don't need your inboxes cluttered up if you don't want it. So please send a text or an email to let me know that you want the recording, and expect to have that straight after Easter. That'll be in your inbox on Tuesday if you'd like to have that. What else is what now? I know that we are on uncertain times, and we obviously are spending a lot of time talking about that and how we manage that well, as we should. But let's remember that there is a flip side to this coin, that in these times of uncertainty, in these times where some of our businesses are less than they have been in the past, that there are also some opportunities, and that opportunity is coming about mainly by the extra time, let's just put that in inverted commas, but some of the things we've usually been doing, we're currently not doing in many of our businesses. And so there is some extra time that we've got. How are we going to utilize that well? I know that there are many clients where they are now focusing on some of those projects that have been on the back burner for a while. I want to get to these projects. We haven't been able to. Well, guess what? Now we can. Let's have a look at some of those projects. They're upskilling. They're looking to upskill their staff. There might be some areas where you've been dying to train this person in a particular aspect, but there just hasn't been the time to do it. Now there is. Product training, cross-training, so that we have more people in our team being able to do various things. It may also be that we're looking to upskill our people in terms of their human skills, their people skills, their leadership skills. Here's the opportunity to do that as well. I think right now we're seeing that for some leaders and managers, some of our team leaders, there are definite gaps that are being highlighted right now. And to some extent, we have a greater opportunity to do something about those. If that opportunity involves utilising your leadership and management skills in particular, then we definitely can help you with that. So we have a Diploma of Leadership and Management, nationally accredited program. We've started doing this with some members of WSBC just recently. I know some of you are here today on the webinar, which is great to see the names flashing there. This gives us the chance. We've modified the program again now so that it's particularly pertinent for these times now where we've got critical business capabilities that we need to be really mindful to upskill our managers and leaders in during this time of COVID-19. We talk about being agile in times of change. This is now being agile in times of crisis as well as in times of change. And that is challenging for most of us, including us as leaders. How do we make the most of that additional time? I don't mean we're sitting there doing nothing, but for many of us, that time where we used to be traveling, that we're not traveling anymore, those face-to-face meetings that went for an hour, we still may be having the meeting for an hour, but we don't have that travel time on either side of it. So how do we make the most of that additional time? And perhaps the diploma is one of the ways that you can help some of your managers and leaders to upskill during this period. It helps to keep them engaged. It helps to keep them productive during this time as well. The diploma ordinarily costs $7,590, but There's some very good news here. For WSBC members, we have some government funding for the program. And so the price goes from $7,590 right down to $2,850, and you can spread those payments across the duration, a saving of $4,740. We've got live workshops. We don't do anything just sitting online. So there's live workshops and there's individual coaching for every person who goes onto the program. And we're offering it now as our standard 6-month program, but also as a fast track 3-month program. That being specifically because of the crisis that we're in now with COVID-19, where for some people they're saying, let me at it, let me fast track and get this done now while I have the opportunity. So that's one of the ways that we can help you to upskill that. Please be in touch. There'll be an expression of interest form in your action pack as well. Complete that if it's something that would be interesting for you or for your staff. And that leads us into the Ask Anything. So let me just see what we've got in here in terms of questions. I'm not seeing any questions in there right now. So if you've got questions, fire them in there. I'm also just going to get off this screen so that I can see you. Oh, cool. The little hand up here. So let me just check in here. Focus Booster is a great app for Pomodoro technique and billing. Great. Thank you, Ian. I'm just looking to see. I haven't got any questions sitting in there. If you've got a question, please put that into the Q&A at the bottom.
Oh, there is one there from Tracy. Given the circumstances, what is the best gentle way to give staff a bit of a nudge that aren't as productive whilst working from home as you'd like them to be?
Oh, great question. That aren't as productive. I would say that the very first thing is that notion of getting onto the front foot. So if you go back to step 1 of creating that certainty and having that priority template, if we're proactive in our conversations, talking about what the person's going to achieve during that day and have that agreed up front, right at the start of the day, then it means you're not trying to do that checking and pulling back to say, oh, have they done enough? For people who are not as productive, the smaller you can make those steps, the easier it is for them to be productive. So where for a person who we know is productive and pretty autonomous, we might just talk about the final end point of the task that they're going to do during the day. For someone who is less productive, you feel, then it becomes important to say, and let's check in at steps 3 and step 5 and step 7, Di. Give me a call or send that in to me when we're at that point. That way you can give them feedback at that point, but it also means that if you like, we'll check to see that they're on their way.
There's also another one here from Daniel Bradley. You mentioned importance of routines and getting out of your pajamas. Should leaders do a team check at the start of the day, even a quick message?
Great question, Daniel. Let me answer it in 2 ways. I do mention about routine and being out of your pajamas. Tempting as it is to say we don't need to get into our work clothes, I believe that when we are in our work clothes, it's almost a trigger for the brain. We go into work mode as well. So I think it's critical that we wear our work clothes, albeit that perhaps in a little bit more relaxed style than we sometimes do. Should you check in at the beginning of the day? Let's go back to what I said just a moment ago, that my sense in the main is yes. Start the day well. And I think that that day starting with a team huddle or individual talks becomes really important. I do know, though, Daniel, that in some businesses, people have specific tasks that they do right at the beginning. So they're doing that team huddle a little bit later in the day. The specific time, I don't think matters as much as the fact that you have it at a specific time with your team every single day. And I think it's worthwhile having both a team check-in and also an individual check-in with each person. So in the individual one, you'll be talking about the priorities that that person has just for the day. The team check-in, I think we're starting to see in 2 ways now. It is, yes, what the team is going to be achieving during the day. What are goals that we're working towards all together. But equally, we're seeing now more and more just the importance of having virtual coffee. Just to check in to see how we're all going, how are we feeling, how did that, whatever it might have been on the weekend go? How did you enjoy Easter, for example, coming up next week? That human connection of us being people, as well as the fill in our teams and companies, both of them are really important.
There's also another one here. It's anonymous. Any ideas on how to stick to 7 to 8 hours a day, as I'm currently working more than I used to?
Yes, it's a danger, isn't it? You know, that whole space where we now have blurred those boundaries between work and home in a way unlike we've ever done before. I think a lot of us probably have done some work at home beforehand, but now they're completely blurred because we don't go out to work. I'd say a couple of things. Firstly, have a designated workspace, so that you walk to work, you go into that space, and you also come out of that space. And set yourself in those routines, set yourself the routine of not only how you start, I've talked about starting well, because that tends to be what we find difficult sometimes, but equally we need to finish. We need to have a definite finish. So sometimes it can be really helpful to put a line or to put an alert on your phone. That's the time when you stop and you physically pack up your things and you walk away from your workspace, out into that personal space with your family or your partners or your housemates, whoever it may be. That schedule that you've got, so where you're doing your next level do list, that next level do list needs to be significantly less than 8 hours of work, because the do list is about your proactive work, not your reactive work as well, which is going to come on top of that. So if you've made a list that already takes 8 hours, then of course you're going to spend much more than 8 hours every single day. And you're right, whoever's asking that question, it's unsustainable, especially for us when right now we're feeling additional pressures from our families, from our partners and their jobs, from our children, from our parents who may be elderly. There's a whole lot of additional pressures that we're feeling right now. So more than at any time, it becomes so important that we can have personal time where we get to recharge and rejuvenate, as well as having our work time. It's a discipline. Build that structure, but it's a discipline. And please feel free to call me if you've got specific things that you'd like to talk about with that afterwards as well. Could you comment? Oh, I'm seeing my comment. When you have teams at school. Thanks, Jeff. I've just seen here, can you comment on tag teaming with your partner when you have 3 kids at school to look after? Does the day get extended from maybe 8 to 12 hours elapsed? Take some of the load off others who are also working. Absolutely. I think this whole notion of us, not only are we needing to work from home in terms of our business sense, our work sense, but we also need to juggle here. How do we work from home with other people who are at home with us? Whether it's our children, whether it's our partner, whoever it might be in our particular household. So I think it's important that we build that structure, but realize that it's unlikely that that structure is going to be able to go from 8 until 5, for example. We can't expect school-age children to just do their thing from 8 till 5 while we're at work. So setting up, and again, it's following those same 3 steps, creating a new rhythm not only for yourself in terms of work, but a new rhythm for your family. Who's going to do what when? So I know, for example, situations where one partner is being with the children in the morning and the other partner is being with the children in the afternoon, or that there's Pomodoro set up where I'm working on the first Pomodoro and then I'm with the children during the second one, and my partner's doing the work in that second one. We need to communicate well and set an agreed rhythm, both for ourselves, our partners, and for our children as well. And I do think that that means that our day, I'm going to say extended, but if I go back to the question that we had before about more than 8 hours, I don't want us to be working more hours, but we're going to work those hours differently. So we may well find that we get up early to do a couple of critical tasks. Then we hang out with the children because it's holiday time and this is the time for us to spend time together. Then we all have lunch together. Then I do some work again, specifically in the afternoon. As long as there's a structure where you know you've got time to work, time to hang out with your family, time for yourself, then we become this sustainable rhythm. But we need to build a sustainable rhythm, and I don't believe that that's possible in our standard 8 to 5 day, if you like. Cool. Were there any others, Amanda?
No, there's no more questions on the chat panel. But just one other little piece of advice that somebody gave me when I first started managing kids whilst working from home, and that is to try and ensure that you are dedicating some real one-on-one attention time with them. So whether that's you take an hour to play a game, or to bake a cake, or to do something, we're giving them your undivided attention. They're just a little bit easier to manage when you are sort of splitting your attention between work and them, if you've managed to do that.
Absolutely. It kind of highlights that whole thing, Amanda, doesn't it, of being present. Wherever we are, we need to be present. So when we are on a Pomodoro, it's about being present in your work, being completely focused on that. When we're with our children, it's about being present, being there completely with and for them at that point. When we're with our partners, it's about being present, being there completely for them, not letting ourselves be distracted. You're dead right. And I think given the pressure that everyone feels under, ourselves as leaders, ourselves as people, our partners, our children, our broader families as well, all of those pressures require us to be present, therefore to be our best selves, and to be kind and generous in that space too. Tempers and emotions are heightened right now. They will continue to be so, and we need to try to manage our own as best we can. But part of that is letting ourselves rejuvenate too, so that we can be the best us, so that we become the best us for everyone in our lives as well.
Absolutely. Daniel's just made a follow-up comment around flexibility, the importance of being flexible, I think, both with yourself and with your team. So whilst we are probably working a little bit more potentially because we are at home and are finding it harder to switch off, on the flip side of that, you could potentially look at, doing your grocery shopping in the middle of the day where there's less people about and those sorts of things. So it's really just sort of about that balance, which I think is a really good point.
Absolutely, it is, isn't it? It's again, it's like that flip side where we maybe have less work, but we've got more opportunity to do some of those projects and do some training. Equally, that's right. There's a lot of freedoms that have been taken away. Good reason for them, obviously, right now. But there are also some freedoms or flexibilities in that space. That's absolutely right. And it's important that we make the most of those, that we see the little positives that we can control, as well as managing those pieces that are more challenging for us as well. Absolutely. Sounds great. Well, I see that it's 1:45. So is this the point where we say, Amanda, thank you all so much for joining us today on the webinar. I hope that you found it really helpful, that those 3 steps, and in particular the how to do them, so that you've got definite tools are there. Reminder that if you want us to send those action packs through to you this afternoon, to text to me straight away both your name and your email, so that I can send those through to you, and then go for it and get started on those 3 steps, both for yourselves and for your teams. You've got my contact details. Please use them for any questions that you have or any feedback as well. But thank you for your time. Stay safe. Enjoy Easter. I know it will be different to usual. The chocolate, I'm sure, will be more therapeutic than it's ever been. Take care of each other and take care of yourselves. Thank you very much. And thank you, Amanda, too, for hosting today. It's been great to do this together. Thank you.
Thanks, Di, and enjoy the rest of your day. And as Di said, please stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Thanks, Amanda.